Nancy Brand. Hi. So I think we'll start with you, Vince, because it all started with you. And I'm curious to know, when you came up with this idea, and looking back on that moment, what's most surprised you about where this story is taken?
I'm just surprised to be here tonight. I'm surprised the shows are even on the air. I mean, I am, not being disingenuous. I mean, the story, the plot story itself has taken many twists and turns and machinations that have been hard fought, but which have proved satisfying, at least to my writers and myself. But I just can't believe the show's even on the air. I mean, it's just, on paper, this thing should not fly. A middle-aged man finds out in the first 20 minutes he's dying of cancer, and he decides to cook crystal meth. I mean, it's just like, switch your wrists over there, turn the channel. It's just like, I can't even believe we're on the air. So I'm just happy we're here.
Was the villain thing, was the idea you're turning somebody from a protagonist to an antagonist, was that always the idea?
That was always the idea. Being a very large quantity consumer of television my whole life, I saw as a kid growing up, TV was in large part about maintaining the franchise, maintaining stasis, and leaving the protagonist of the series pretty much untouched. He or she would be basically the same character in the first episode that they were in the 100th episode, 200th episode, and that is not a bad thing. It's the nature of the beast, because you want to be able to tune in week in and week out and invite your favorite TV characters in your home. But it seemed to me it might be fun to try something different, and to that end, create a TV show about change, about transformation, and about, in this case, about a character who willfully, through sheer force of will, decides to go from being a good guy, or goes down that road to hell that is paved with good intentions. Winds up slipping down that path and becoming darker and darker and more antagonist. It seemed like a fun way to go. That was absolutely the thesis from day one. That was the pitch from day one to Sony and to ultimately the AMC network.
No one was skittish about it?
A lot of people were skittish about it, but not not Sony Television and not the AMC network. All the folks who turned us down were definitely skittish about it. But I have to say, God bless them, Sony, from day one, and then AMC, when they came aboard, went forward with courage and saw the potential value of the show, saw how good it could be, or how different it could be, and were big boosters from day one. And I assumed it would be otherwise, because I've had plenty of failures in 27 years of doing this in movies and TV. I've had plenty of meetings that start off with, we love you, your script is brilliant, and then as you progress down the path toward production, hopefully production, you get the death by 1,000 cuts begins, and you start to get the, in the case of something like this, it would be, Walter White, does he have to be quite so bad? Does he have to be meth? Does it have to be dying of cancer? Could it be something, anyway. But I have to say, it never happened. It never happened with AMC and Sony.
Well, what were the initial conversations you and Brian had about Walter? And were they intense? Were there a lot of discussion about how exactly it should be played? There's the idea that you sell, and there's the thing you put on. And so, how did you come to that?
Well, I just, all I know is I wanted Bryan Cranston, having worked with him, what's your name again? Having worked with him back in 1999 on the X-Files. You want to take that one? Do you remember those early days, that first meeting I had?
Those early days back in the day. I had the very, very good fortune to be able to be cast in an episode of the X-Files called Drive, and this character that he wrote was a really interesting guy. Somehow there was some bug in his head, and if he didn't move in a westerly direction at 80 miles an hour, this bug would explode. It's based on a true story. So somehow David Duchovny gets in the car, I'm in the back seat, and he's driving 80 miles an hour to save my life. And to give you an idea of the nuance of what he does in his writing, he made this character, Crump, I think was his name, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He made him a total asshole. He was a bigoted, anti-Semitic. He hated everyone. He was awful. And so David Duchovny's character, Mulder, wanted, in the worst way, just to hell with this guy, he wanted to pull over, stop, and let this guy die. Right? So if he wrote it the way most television shows would have been written, that I was a good guy, then yeah, the audience would go, yeah, Mulder, save him, he's a nice guy, and Mulder would try to save me, and no, he didn't get saved, and Mulder's sad, and the audience goes, No. So what happened is that he put the emotional dilemma, the ethical dilemma, in the center of his main character. Do I try to save this man simply because he's a human being? And that's what he did for him. Despite hating me, he still had to go because that's who he was as a human being. That's what his character was. So I thought it was brilliant. And we had a great time, and I met him, and it was terrific, and I went on, and I didn't see him for 10 years. And then I get a call from my agency, and there was several pilot scripts to read, and he said, yeah, read that one first, Breaking Bad. You know him, you worked with him on X-Files, and it's good, and it's going soon, he wants to meet with you. Oh, okay. And I read it cover to cover in one sitting, and that says a lot. Those of you who have read scripts before, you always find reasons to go get a cup of tea or make a phone call, and then get back to that script that you have to read. But this one was exceptional. And if you remember the pilot, a pair of trousers falls down from the sky, and this a red rock in the background. An RV speeding through the desert runs over them, cut to inside. A man wearing only tighty-whitey underwear and a respirator drives frantically. He looks to the man next to him, passed out, also wearing a respirator. Behind him, two dead men slide up and back in a sea of glass and chemicals. And that was page one, and I'm going, what the fuck? Oh my God! And from that moment, you're on the ride, you buy in, and you're just holding on. And that's the way it's felt for these 5 seasons. So it's like we're all just holding on, and he takes us on this wild ride. It's like a roller coaster in the dark, where you go and you don't really know where the twists and turns are going to come, and it's exciting. And it's a lot of fun.
Well, Brian, talk about the physicality of Walter White, which I think is one of the most amazing things about your performance in the show is your physical presence. It's at times, even when you're at your scariest, there'll be like a moment of like almost like Inspector Clouseau comedy to like something you do. Over the years, how has that been for you, and how has that made you get into Walter White?
Well, this is something we discussed early on, and actually, I can't give enough credit to Vince. He was my champion to get this role. Sony and AMC both, and rightfully so, said, you want the silly dad from Malcolm in the Middle to play Walter White? You've got to be kidding. And he goes, no, he's an actor, he's fine, he's good, he's my guy. I did not have sex with that woman. But, so we discussed it a lot, and we knew that he was going to go through chemotherapy, and when he told me that he wanted it to, as he fondly says, turn Mr. Chips into Scarface, my jaw dropped, and I thought about it, and I realized that's never happened before in the history of television. I mean, you think about it. What television series have you seen where a character changes from one to the other? I can't remember. Someone said, Fonzie. Fonzie changed. Ooh. But that's, so we talked about the details, and I started pitching him with ideas, and he pitched back with ideas, and we came up with an amalgam of who this guy is according to our own sensibilities, and then and then you're off and running, and you just play it out. But to be absolutely honest with you, the most underrated and the most important element in any production is the story. Without a good story, without a good writer, you're lost. So I truly believe that what we have done, our talent really lies in being able to identify well-written material, and you hook your wagon to a strong horse, and he pulls it. And that's truly the way I feel about it.
Well, I mean,
Well, fine, people just called you a horse.
Vince, in what ways have the stories been influenced actually by the fact that you have this amazing cast? When does what you know an actor can give you influence the storytelling?
It's priceless. It influences. I'm sure it influences the storytelling itself. I'm trying to think of some examples. I can tell you a good example that springs to mind is it influences the way we tell our stories. That's the one that immediately springs to mind. By that I mean, best way to put it is, a lot of times in movies, a lot of times in TV shows, the characters tend to tell you, the viewer, what they are thinking. And of course, we know if we watch real life enough versus TV and movies, and people in real life seldom tell you exactly what they're thinking. Sometimes they tell you the opposite. They say the opposite of what they're thinking, or they don't really say what's in their mind. And we want our show to feel more like a reality in that sense. And so therefore, it becomes, you can imagine from a writer's point of view, it's tough. What do you think in terms of, there's certain ideas we want to get across. We want to get across, for instance, Walt's pride. We want to get across, for instance, Skylar's, the ambivalence she feels toward, she definitely wants her husband to do the right thing, but she doesn't want him to go to jail. Get across Jesse's feelings of faith in his partner, the desire for a father figure. All these disparate moments that we wish to get across, and on down the line, you could, with lesser actors, you'd fall back upon speechifying scenes in which the characters tell you what they're thinking. My writers and I are blessed by this cast, and we are set free by their ability to get across more with a look to one another than with 100 words of dialogue. And that is the blessing of working with great actors, is their ability to, I can't tell you how many times we said in the writer's room, how are we going to get this idea across? And then we say, oh wait, it's Brian getting it across, or it's Anna, or it's Aaron, or Dean, or Betsy, or RJ. Yes. Or Bob. And a look will suffice. And that's the overly long answer. But that is the heart of it. That is the heart of it, where the old saying, "A picture's worth 1,000 words." Sometimes it is not, but a great actor's worth 10,000 words, and can get across through his or her eyes, his or her on the cock of their head. It just basically, you can see what they're all thinking. It just leaks through their eyeballs in these scenes, and we don't have to have them explain through reams and reams of dialogue what they're thinking. You get it from the close-up that we've got to. So.
Well, I think with that, that's a perfect introduction to this clip we want to show from episode 12 of this past year between Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston. It's a kind of a key moment that perfectly delineates